So, yeah, as you can see, I'm injured. But, yeah, what else is new? Anyways, there's a lot of unsettling things in the world. And whenever new science comes out, it's always quick to judge, and too many people fall head over heels. But there's been a recent discovery that's just been crying out what I've been talking about all along. Um, the discovery of a species of people called ardipithecus ramidus. It's basically, you can nickname it the Hobbit species, and because they were about 4 feet tall. Message. Anyways, they're about 4 feet tall, and they were around about 4.4 million years ago. The oldest humanoid dated species. Their most distant relative was, in fact, the chimpanzee. So, yes, we are part of the chimpanzee family. We are apes after all, and so are chimpanzees. Tailless monkeys, basically. Monkeys that are really bad at climbing trees. That's what us apes are. We can climb trees, just not very well. We're more land creatures. Anyways, and this is 4.4 million years ago. The body of a child, you'd think, wouldn't stand a chance in such an ancient world. Well, they lived on an island to begin with. Their species, this group of people, it was on an island, breaking off from an island that obviously that broke off from Pangea millions of years ago. That leads to believe that during the Jurassic era, there must have been some sort of ape species in the beginning of new life, um, that existed all over. That wasn't just in one place, and that's why it's spread over different continents, because it was all one continent at one time. And so this suggests that ape species and monkey species and all that are around for a lot longer than we think. But from what we know right now, the oldest humanoid was 4.4 million years ago. She had it was a female, and she had tools around her and bones from other humanoid species around her that dated back another million years, which is 5.4 million years ago. And so she's possibly old of age, sitting where, I guess, other elders had sat, or maybe she died and that was a hole or something, and they threw her in it, and it was a hole that they had put other dead people in for millions of years, and apparently, eventually, most of those bones deteriorated into nothing, which is why only a few bones would remain, and why we wouldn't really be able to tell anything from them, that other than the fact that the bones around her were much older. Um, and in order for hers to be in such good condition, you gotta suspect that she was a head figure of some sort, wrapped or preserved somehow. Took her organs out and stuffed her or something. All that all those preserving methods that they do, so on and so forth. And this is right after drastic climate change, a global crisis that happened 6 million years ago. So this has got to be a very tough species. The apes have been around for millions of years, along with the sight of UFOs. Now, if you connect these two together, you gotta think, well, God created man, alright? And all abductee reports are dated to be abducted by humanoid creatures. God created man in his image, so basically God and man are the same species, right? They're both just as intelligent, right? So these so-called gods, these aliens, or maybe not aliens, maybe we should call them brethren. Maybe we shouldn't be calling them aliens anymore. Maybe we should be calling them our brothers and sisters because they're technically family. They are the same species. They are also apes, just like us. And UFOs have been here all the time that we've been here. It's just common sense to understand that, that the Bible is right in a different way. Because you gotta look at it from an idiot standpoint. From an idiot standpoint, all this makes sense. Because back then, they didn't understand. If they saw something flying through the sky, they thought it was an animal. There was no such thing as electricity, you know. So they can't possibly understand something that's beyond their understanding. Everything was like gods to them. They rode around on dragons. The gods rode on dragons that flew through the sky and came up out of the water and destroyed ships that were about to go into battle. You know, dragons. What do you think these so-called dragons are? That have brightly lit eyes, that have a solid scaly body. Scaly. What does that? What does scales represent? Shiny. What does shiny represent? Hello, it's metal. All right, it's a giant metal ball. A few of them, they described the dragons as large, round, metallic, scaly figures with bright, fiery eyes and shooting out a sort of red flame. That red flame is propulsion, first of all. It was blue and red, and one of them, dated by, I forget the man's name. He was a fisherman. As ancient, back when the pirates were around. It wasn't ancient times, but it was still fairly far back, and it's still pretty primitive. This was still before electricity, and well, this is around the time early electricity, and it was breathing fire. That's propulsion, and it was around a dragon with lit up eyes. I mean, that doesn't even make sense now. But back then, that made perfect sense. Because anything that moved on its own was an animal, was a living creature. You gotta think of it from an idiot standpoint. From an idiot standpoint, the Bible makes sense. Because the Bible was written by an idiot. A person who, I mean, I guess you can't call him an idiot because he didn't understand what he's looking at the time. That was his way of depicting what was really going on. So, when you read the Bible, don't get too caught up in it. Because a lot of it's based off of theory and misunderstanding and misconception and metaphors. So, you can't get too caught up in it. I mean, some of it, in a way, is true. God created man, Well, duh, he's the same species. The aliens brought us here, so of course they created us. We're the same species as them. We're both apes. I mean, okay, duh, tell me something I don't know. They still have fucking robotic patrols that stick around. I mean, you can't expect them to just stick around and have UFOs and personnel on site watching after us. First of all, that'd be a waste of time. Second of all, that'd be highly dangerous. What if it was a crash? That's why all of the so-called grays are so thin and so tiny. There has been creatures in the past that have showed up that were quite a bit thicker than the grays that crash landed, and they did wear spacesuits. But the grays are different because the grades are much thinner, they're much smaller, and their heads are really big. They're robots, okay? Get over it. Why do you think every part of them is their eyes? They're giant black eyes. On what's that crash called? That famous crash. I don't know what it was called. But one of the things they excavated from it was Roswell, the Roswell crash. One of the famous things that they excavated from it was a pair of so-called, not necessarily glasses, but they're shaped like giant eyeballs, basically. And they're big and black, and when you put them on, everything at night seemed like daylight. So, well, what do you think it is? It's a piece of machinery. Um, Now you could say that those were contact lenses for the actual creatures, but do you think they would actually waste their time on sending actual creatures here? No. They had to be robots, okay? They're a highly sophisticated species. They can make them look fairly human. Like I just told you, the Bible is written by people who, when they saw flying creatures, they thought, okay, it must be a living creature. Saw a flying thing, they thought, okay, it's a living creature. I mean, if you look back to the Mesopotamian times, they had created little figurines of ships, and they called them the dragon figurine. You know, the dragon figurine. They'd have little people figurines and little alien figurines. They'd make all kinds of little golden figurines, and because that was a golden age, and they'd make stuff out of gold. That was their trade, because at a certain time when the Anunnaki came here, the people were used as miners to mine gold, which is why we had such fucking large gold deposits, because we were fucking mining that shit for them. Why do you think we had so much fucking gold? I mean, yeah, a lot of it was risen to the surface already because none of it had been excavated. But why do you think it even got into the trade? Why do you think it became so rare? Why do you think it became a source of trade? Why do you think we started mining it? Why would we just start mining a stupid rock? Think about it. That's because we had actually mined it for millions of years for someone else, for a different species that needed our gold for whatever fucking reason. Maybe they ate gold, who knows? It is a rock. Maybe they eat rocks. Okay. Maybe they need it for their fuel source. It does have a very particular set of minerals. And when you look back at that and you think, okay, so now we're seeing these creatures that we can't quite describe. Well, how's that any different from the Bible? They had a hard time describing what they were looking at. So, what I'm trying to say, is whether they are creatures in suits or whether they are just robots, don't get all caught up in it, We don't have all the facts yet. Don't go crazy, people. I mean, yeah, they're here, they're queer, but deal with it. Like the old saying. I don't know, I just wanted to point that out, that that these hobbits with brains that are all folded over like the human's small intestine, that are all folded over and compact, and bodies are much smaller and just basically the same thing almost, with really large canines for large teeth for crushing bones, and large canines for cutting. And yeah, that's all I really had to say. I just want people to, it's okay to get into alien research and all that, and look into all this UFO stuff, but don't let it scare you. I mean, when